Have you ever wondered where the fearsome Vikings, known for their fierce battles and expeditions, originated from? The Viking Saga unfolds in the Scandinavian regions of Norway, Denmark, and Sweden around the late 8th century, a time when these hardy people were not yet the seafaring warriors we often picture them to be. Instead, their story begins on farmland and in marketplaces, where they were diligent farmers and shrewd traders. Their rugged homeland landscapes were as diverse as their skill sets, ranging from fertile plains for farming to dense forests, rich with game. Over time, these hardy Norsemen harnessed the power of their environment, developing a deep understanding of navigation, boat building, and other maritime skills. These would later become the backbone of their seafaring prowess. Thus, the Viking Age began as these Nordic seafarers set sail, marking the start of an era filled with exploration, trade, and conquest. An era that would etch their name into history, forever associated with courage, adventure, and the quest for discovery. So, what transformed these peaceful farmers into formidable sea conquerors? Let's dive into the heart of the Viking Era, a time when the tranquil landscape of Scandinavia was interrupted by the construction of the most advanced sea vessels of the age. The Vikings, initially peaceful farmers, found themselves drawn to the open sea, fueled by a combination of necessity and ambition. What sparked this transformation? Several factors played a part. The Vikings lived in a region with a harsh climate and limited arable land. The growth of their population led to a scarcity of resources, forcing them to look beyond their borders. The open sea offered a solution: new lands to explore, rich with resources and ripe for the taking. But it wasn't just ambition or necessity that set the Vikings sailing across the vast seas. They possessed advanced shipbuilding skills, a knowledge passed down through generations. Their longships, sleek and swift, were marvels of their time. Designed for both speed and stability, these vessels were capable of sailing the high seas and navigating the shallowest of rivers. Their navigational techniques were equally impressive. They used sun compasses, studied the flight patterns of birds, and observed the ocean currents and winds. These techniques, combined with their intimate knowledge of the coastlines, made them expert seafarers, capable of traversing vast distances with remarkable precision. Their voyages weren't always peaceful explorations, though. The Vikings gained notoriety for their brutal raids on monasteries and towns across Europe. These attacks weren't random acts of violence, but strategic operations. Monasteries, often located in remote areas and poorly defended, were easy targets, laden with wealth. The attacks marked the Vikings' reputation as fearsome warriors, instilling fear in the hearts of those who heard their name. The Vikings, once peaceful farmers, had transformed into formidable sea conquerors. They ventured across unfamiliar seas, settled in new lands, and left an indelible mark on the pages of history. Their superior seafaring skills and strategic attacks made the Vikings a force to be reckoned with. But were the Vikings just ruthless warriors? Let's unfurl the sails of our curiosity and navigate into the heart of Viking society, a realm far more complex than just sword-wielding marauders. At the crux of Viking society was an intricate social structure, finely woven like their iconic longships. At the helm were the Jarls, the aristocracy of Viking culture, followed by the Carls, the free farmers and artisans, and at the bottom, the thralls, or slaves. This hierarchy was fluid, allowing room for upward mobility through courageous deeds on the battlefield or savvy trading. Viking values were deeply ingrained in their way of life. Honor, bravery, loyalty. These were not mere words, but the compass guiding their actions. They believed in fate, or weird, and lived their lives with a boldness that comes from surrendering to the inevitable. The spiritual life of the Vikings was equally fascinating. Steeped in Norse mythology, the pantheon of gods like Odin, Thor, and Freya were not just divine figures, but also sources of inspiration and moral guidance. Rituals, sacrifices, and feasts were common ways to honor these deities and seek their favor. In the Viking world, roles were not strictly divided by gender. Men were warriors, traders, and farmers. Women, meanwhile, managed the household, but also had the right to divorce, own property, and in the absence of men, assume leadership. Children were seen as future warriors or homemakers, their education being primarily practical, learning the ropes of survival and societal roles from an early age. And let's not overlook their system of law and order. The Vikings had a surprisingly democratic assembly known as the Thing. Here, free men could voice their opinions, settle disputes, and even make laws. The Viking Society, while known for its warriors, was also rich in culture, beliefs, and democratic practices. So you see, the Vikings were much more than just seafaring invaders. They were a people with a deeply rooted sense of community, values, and a complex social structure. How did this era of exploration and conquest come to an end, you may ask? The Viking Era, an epic marked by seafaring warriors, innovative shipbuilders, and intrepid explorers, didn't end abruptly. Instead, it was a gradual decline, a slow fade into the annals of history around the 11th century. One major factor was the political changes sweeping across Europe. As kingdoms consolidated their power, they became more capable of resisting Viking incursions. The rise of centralized authorities led to stronger defenses, making Viking raids less successful and less profitable. Simultaneously, a profound cultural shift was happening in the heartland of the Vikings, Scandinavia. The Christianization of these regions played a significant role in the ending of the Viking Age. As Christianity spread, it brought with it new cultural norms and societal structures that clashed with the Viking way of life. The Old Norse gods were gradually replaced with the Christian god, and the Vikings' pagan practices started to fade. Internal conflicts, too, were eating away at the Vikings from within. Disputes over territory, power, and resources led to infighting among the Viking clans. This disunity weakened their collective strength and made them more vulnerable to their enemies. Yet, even as their era ended, the Vikings didn't simply disappear. They adapted and blended into the societies they once raided and traded with. They became part of the evolving tapestry of medieval Europe, their influence seeping into various aspects of life. Their legacy is still evident today. From the English language, which borrowed numerous words from Old Norse, to the modern democratic system of Iceland, which can trace its roots back to the Vikings' Althing, an early form of parliamentary assembly. The Vikings' innovative shipbuilding techniques influenced maritime technology, and their sagas continue to inspire literature and art. So, the Viking era may have ended, but the echoes of their history still reverberate through the ages. Despite their decline, the Vikings left an indelible mark on history, their legacy continuing to fascinate us even today. So, what have we learned about the Vikings? We've unraveled the enigma of the Vikings, exploring their origins in the icy lands of Scandinavia. We've seen how they transformed from simple farmers into formidable seafarers and warriors, braving the tempestuous seas to conquer new lands. We've delved into the Viking Society, understanding their unique societal structure. From the free men and women to the slaves, each member had a distinct role and purpose. Their laws, their beliefs, and their way of life have given us a glimpse into a civilization that was both complex and fascinating. And finally, we've walked through the twilight of the Viking Age, observing the factors that led to their decline. The Viking era may have ended, but their influence didn't. The Vikings, while often remembered as fearsome warriors, were also explorers, traders, and settlers, their legacy echoing through the annals of history. They were a people who left an indelible mark on the world, their stories still captivating us to this day.